Hey everyone, welcome to the Mighty Books Podcast, where we sit down and chat with mighty authors about their books, message, writing successes, struggles, and other relevant authorship topics. I'm your host, Ryan M. Oliver, author of the Beasts of Men and Gods series. Now let's get started on today's chat. This episode's featured author on the Mighty Books Podcast is Peter Stockwell. Peter Stockwell is a retired middle school teacher embarking on a career telling stories. After 32 years of guiding the minds and emotions of preteen and teenage students, he left the classroom to relax and enjoy the rest of his life with family and friends. Instead, he wrote a book and published it. The fun began when he learned the next step, marketing his creation to the world. He has now written and published 10 books, with several more in the future. He writes mystery, crime investigative stories, futuristic science fiction, and inspirational books. He lives with his wife, Sandy, and son, David, in Silverdale, Washington. He has 5 adult children and 8 grandchildren who are a source of great joy. He is a past member of the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, PNWA, International Thriller Writers, ITW, Northwest Independent Writer Association, NIWA, and current member of Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers, or KLAW. He publishes through his company, Westridge Art. Each month, Peter and another KLAW member, Mark Miller, record and produce a television show in which they interview Northwest authors, artists, musicians, editors, and publishers. Production of the show is in conjunction with Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, or BCAT. Peter enjoys traveling the various parts of the world, usually on a cruise ship. He has visited Japan, Central America, Mexico, Bahamas, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, England, Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Scotland, Holland, and France. He has been in each of the 50 states in the United States and British Columbia. Follow him on Facebook, peterstockwell.com, and Instagram. Contact Peter at stockwell@wavecable.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the other episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today we have author Peter Stockwell. Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Excellent. So let's dive into this lovely interview we're having today. You're going to have multiple answers to this, but what is the title of your books? What's the title of your books?
I have 5 in a mystery crime investigation series. They're entitled Motivations, Motive, Jerry's Motives, Death Stalks Mr. Blackthorn, and In the Garden of Eden. And my detective is with the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office. His name is Marcus Jefferson. People ask me all the time, is he real? He says, well, as real as my head made up. And then I have a science fiction series that I'm working on. It takes place in about 60 years. The first book came out 2 years ago. It's called The Mistress. And its sequel, Android Dawn, will be out probably June 1st. And then the next one is Android Incursion, which continues the battle between androids and humans, androids and androids, humans and humans. Not much different than what we live today, except we push science out.
Right.
And I also am a son of a preacher man. And my dad, who is an Episcopal priest, has all kinds of sermons. And I have 3 books with a 4th one coming about his sermons that people can read for inspiration. So those are my books.
So how many is that?
I've 10 out right now.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible. Well, what inspired you to write your stories? What made you want to sit down at the desk and just work like crazy and get all these out there?
Well, my first book, Motive, was a nugget of family history. And you take little nuggets of what you know, and then you expand them with the imagination. And I was getting close to retirement from teaching. And so I decided I'm not a couch potato. I don't just sit around. So I wrote this book. Took me about 3 years to actually get the right manuscript and get everything the way it was. And that was the inspiration. Then, of course, once you write one book, you got to write the next. And that became Motivations, which was a prequel to it, because the characters kept talking to me and saying, well, you wrote down all this background information. Don't you want to tell our story? And I said, yeah, sure, fine. So actually, I wrote it from the first person. Victoria and Roger went back and forth telling their experiences of what was going on around them. And so you got to meet them personally. Victoria was the sister of Mary, who is the wife of Roger. And we get to meet Mary through the eyes of her sister and her husband. We don't meet her personally, but we do get to know her as a person. So I wrote that. That's how I wrote that one. And then I just kept going after that. You know, they had Mark wanted to solve what happened to his uncle, which is Jerry's motives. And then Joan, his wife, and Mark went on vacation with their 3 kids on a cruise to Alaska. Of course, I've been on cruises to Alaska, so why not write a story about it? And then there was a murder aboard the ship, and somehow my detective on vacation got involved in it. So, you know, he's not supposed to. He said, "Nah, it's not my ship," but he got involved in it. And then, of course, when he figured out what was going on the ship and the cruise ended, he came home and he went searching for the poison that killed this author and poisoned his 2 sons. So that's in the Garden of Eden.
So that series, the detective series, has 5
books in it.
Okay.
And yet I left a little nugget at the end of that one because I had mentioned something about this octopus of a drug cartel working in Everett, and that they had finally killed the octopus, except for one tentacle that escaped.
So it sounds to me like there's going to be future books then.
There will be future books there. Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to it.
Oh yeah. So I mean, do you have in your mind? Do you have a certain number, or you're just going to go until the ideas die out?
I'm going to go until I stop writing because I'm dead.
Good answer. Good answer. That's good. So
then I'll leave my family to take care of all that royalty work that's going to be coming in, piling in, like, because I'll be so freaking famous around the world. You know how it is. It takes 20 years to become famous overnight.
Right. It's a long night.
Very long night.
So when you're not writing, what do you like doing?
I like reading, and I watch some TV. I do puzzles, and I of course like to travel, and we take cruises. Oh, hence the books. No, we did. Our last cruise was down to Peru a couple of years ago. We actually had one scheduled the next year in 2020, but some little thing happened.
Yeah,
they canceled all the boat rides.
Darn little thing.
So anyway, we're heading out this August to Amsterdam, and we're going to take a cruise in Europe. So, and I like traveling around the United States. Did a road trip in March. Went down to Arizona, saw my sister who was snowbirding down there, came back up through Utah and Idaho and back to Washington. Got to see the Monument Valley area of Utah and went to Four Corners so I could touch 4 states at once. And went to Tombstone and watched the OK Corral reenactment. That was fun. And then actually in Twin Falls, Idaho, when we were on our way home, we spent the night there, and I went to church at the brand new Church of the Ascension. My dad had been the priest at Church of the Ascension for 8 years when I was a kid. And things have changed in Blue Lakes Boulevard in Twin Falls, Idaho. Whereas it used to have a lot of houses on it, has a lot of businesses on it. The old church is gone. My old elementary school, Washington Elementary, is gone. It's an Albertsons now.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. And I know a lot of changes happen around here too. And it's funny to see just in the last 20 years, we've had a lot of changes in Silverdale, Bremerton. And it's just funny how industry changes.
Yeah, when my parents first got here in 1970, I think the population was about 101,000. And I just looked it up recently. It's 272,000.
Okay.
It's grown in 50 plus years.
It's not a bad influx in 50 years. I won't lie. It's not too big. It's not too big. Yeah. So you said
not
that
too big.
Yeah.
Unless you're trying to drive down Silverdale Way to go home.
Yeah. Or Ridgetop.
Afternoon.
Yeah. That's not nearly as bad as going through Gorst.
God.
Gorst is ridiculous.
3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, getting out of West Bremerton, heading towards Gorst. Nah.
Yeah, just stay out of that area.
It's an hour-long trip.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's gross. So when you were writing your books, what was the most surprising thing you learned in creating them?
That's a fair question. I suppose it came about to how do you make a character real? My dedication in the new book, no, it's dedicated to readers that believe in the characters and want to relate to them as friends. I dedicated to readers who like to have that kind of development between themselves and the characters. And I think that's one of the important things. How do you write it so that those people become as real as possible in the minds of the people who are reading the stories, and keeping the dialogue in such a way? Dialogue's interesting because we do not write dialogue as we speak. Because if we wrote dialogue as we speak, we'd bore our readers because of the that we put into our own speech. Can't do that, except occasionally you kind of have to. But the dialogue has to be real, but it also has to be engaging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be. I love writing dialogue. Dialogue is probably one of the more fun ones to do, especially when you can get in the mind of the character. I'm sure you do this too, but pulling from friends, families, acquaintances that you've met over time, and certain characters, like real characters, who are just, their characters are strange, and putting their voice into stories. I love doing that. It's just, you kind of get, when you start making yourself laugh, you're having a good time with it, and hopefully that laugh while you're making it registers a laugh in the readers as well.
Yeah. A few years ago, we were back east when my daughter Michelle was living in Virginia, and her aunt, my ex-sister-in-law, is also in that area. She lives in Alexandria. She had motive and motivations, and I asked her if she recognized anybody, and she just nodded her head and said, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." She recognized the fact that in motive, Victoria is basically her. Because she's the younger sister of Mary, who could be my ex-wife because her middle name was Mary, but my ex-wife is still alive, so I didn't kill her.
Gotcha.
But there were nuggets in there of family history that were put in, just because, as I've said before, you write what you know, write what you've experienced, and then make up the rest.
Yeah, that makes it just more, I don't know, authentic. It makes it more authentic, and it really makes it fun for family and friends who know you personally. They can go, "Oh, this is something that maybe Peter would have said," or "This is something that an interaction that happened years ago at some family reunion or a dinner, or something silly happened, and it made its way in the books." And I know I do the same thing with all of mine. They got little tidbits of funny stories, throw it in there. It might be funny to someone who doesn't know the background, but I think it's even funnier to those who do know the background.
Unless, of course, they don't want you to say it and tell it.
Yeah, there's that too. There is.
But you tell it anyway and say, "Hey,
yeah,
made the story work."
Yeah,
and exactly. I said, "Yeah, I know it did make the story work."
Well, and so I guess that is it. Kind of the same answer to this question is, what makes a good story? Is that just that connectivity to the character, or is there more to that?
I think the character is the main thing that draws somebody in, but if you get a storyline that is intriguing and continues, I've read Ken Follett's books. His books are 1,000 pages, and they come in triplicate. And you think, "Oh God, am I ever going to get through?" But the storyline, developing the cathedral, or following through the 20th century in 5 different environments, cultural backgrounds, that can keep you going. Lisa Gardner, who lives in Boston, and her Boston police officer, detective, and the boyfriend who's with the state patrol. Intriguing stories about, all right, what's going on? How are we going to figure this out? And you keep reading because they keep leaving these little hooks in there. So yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah, so that you leave a hook in a book, so that, I know nobody saw that, but for those of you out there listening, I held up the Mistress so that Ryan could look at it. But
he did.
The point is that there's a hook at the end of my book, The Mistress, which will draw you out to read the next book, The Android Dawn, because you want to figure out, geez, what? You do that. You make it intriguing for a person who just, as one guy said, I had 3 other books I was reading, and I started reading Motive because I knew you. and I forgot the other three. I read your book. And I said, well, thank you. And he says, I just couldn't put it down. It was really good. So you want to hear that.
You do. You might make it an immersive experience.
Yes.
You definitely make it immersive. Well, throughout your process, I mean, how long have you been writing for now?
A little over 10 years.
Okay. Throughout that 10 years, did you ever consider writing under a pseudonym?
Yeah, I have. It depends upon which genre I go into. You'll notice that when you take a look at the books for the mysteries, they're authored by Peter Stockwell. The science fiction is authored by P.A. Stockwell. I put my dad's name, Stormin Norman, as the title, the Sermons of an Episcopal Priest, with commentary by Peter Stockwell. Mm. But yeah, I had considered doing pseudonyms if I was going to get into something that maybe I wanted to keep my name a little more hidden. Mm-hmm. Not that I would write 49 Shades of Grey. It's that 50th one. Well, it was that 49th or 50th one that got the book out there.
Yeah.
And then I have heard that if you're writing romance, mostly that's women. And mostly if you are a man, you're writing it with your initials. You're not writing it with your full name. I mean, that's just something I've heard.
Right.
But then I've decided I want to be who I am. So I write under my name.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. What other authors are you friends with, and how do they help you become a better writer?
Well, there's this guy named Ryan Oliver that I'm doing a podcast with.
Who is he? He sounds cool.
Yeah, he's all right. No, I have Mark Miller, who writes under the name of Marshall Miller, who's down in Port Orchard, and he and I do the television series on the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television together. We are members of KLAW, which is the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. By the way, you should be a part of that. We have put together our Blackberry Festival downtown over Labor Day in Bremerton. We put up a booth and market our books along with other authors in the area. D.L. Gardner, who is an author a fantasy writer down in Port Orchard. Mm-hmm. She's also a fantastic artist, and some of her covers are her artwork.
Oh, nice.
For her dragons and such. D.L. Fowler, Larry Fowler, who is an author in Gig Harbor, wrote about Lincoln. Lincoln Raw is the first book, and The Turn is the second book in the series there about Lincoln. Basically, it's reality, but it's fictionalized because we don't really know what took place. But he has done a lot of research. David Martin is a guy who writes about the 30 Years' War, mm-hmm. and also goes into biblical history and writes about Ruth and other characters in the Bible. There are, in this neighborhood of ours called Kitsap County, hundreds and hundreds of authors that we have looked at, interviewed, shared booths with while we sold. And one guy is, maybe you've heard of, Robert Dugoni. Mm-mm. He's over in Kirkland. He wrote the Tracy Crosswhite series and the David Sloan series. He and I were in the PNWA together, Pacific Northwest Writers Association together. And he's been writing about 10 years longer than me. And he has become worldwide known and has aspired to the point where he is, I don't know, somewhere 8 to 10 million books in print. So that happens.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I love getting to know people who you would never have known other than before you wrote books, and you find out what they've done and what people they've reached. And it can kind of be shocking, a little like, wow, I'm starstruck kind of a thing. Like, how do I act?
Well, but I've done that because I've gone to International Thriller Writers in New York. Mm-hmm. I've been at, of course, PNWA, and they have brought in a lot of different people into these writings. So I did get to meet Ken Follett. Oh, cool. I met Lisa Gardner. I've met Catherine Coulter and forgot his name. David. He wrote the Sylvester Stallone starred in not the boxing ones. I forgot his name. David Moreau. David Moreau.
Okay.
And yes, these are famous authors. Lee Child, for instance, famous mm-hmm. author. You know what you find out about them?
Hmm.
They're just as human as we are.
Exactly.
And they all started out the same way we did, one book at a time.
Yeah.
And then they just kept producing books. They expanded their audience and became well known. And so we know their names, their household names. They're just people.
They sure are. All right. So what was your career as a teacher like? And did it help you with your stories at all?
I'm not sure if it helped me with my stories, other than the fact that in my teaching of language arts, that helps. But study of history, what I did mostly was social studies. And so the study of history and other writers and such in history that came into be, I think that did help a bit. I spent 32 years, as I like to say to people I meet, I spent 32 years torturing middle school students. They all laugh because most of them understand they have or had middle school students, or they remember it themselves as being a middle school student. Of course, your wife was not one that I had to torture.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
We just enjoyed having her in class. She's smart. I mean, let's face it. She's a smart girl.
She is. She's way smarter than me. I'll tell you that right now.
She was wise enough to marry you.
See, that's the one point, we go back and forth about that. She'll joke me, why did I marry you again? I was like, I don't know, lapse in judgment. I can't tell you. I caught you on a bad day. No. We joke. We have a good time. We have a good time.
No, she's a good woman. She really is.
She really is. She really is.
Spending 32 years in Kitsap County teaching 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders has been a lot of fun. It really was. And I do feel that I'm a better person for it. There are a lot of people out there, because I live in the same county I taught in, and I'm still here, I do run into students every so often who come back and say, hi, Mr. Stockwell. Mm-hmm. Where was I? I was at a book signing, I'm trying to remember where it was, and they saw the posters that I had put up and recognized who I was, came over and said hi. When I was down at Unique Local Bazaar, there was a family that was out sitting at the benches. And I, being a shy person, no, I went over and talked to them. Well, it turned out that one of them was a student. Now, she's an adult now and has her own kids, but she was a student at Mountain View. I did not have her, but she said, I think my sister had you. And sure enough, the sister showed up. And she was a former student of mine. And she said, you're one of the best teachers I ever had. And I said, really? He says, why? And she said, you treated us like people, and that's a secret because I won't mention any names at Mountain View, but there were some teachers who thought the subject was more important than anything. And I think, no, you're not going to get it across until you get the cross to the kids. Then once they engage with you, then the subject matter becomes important to them. Anyway, I did have a lot of fun with it. And I think sometimes storyline might match something that happened in the classroom or engaging with parents in conferences and such. For the most part, it was just being a teacher and having to be able to teach kids about how you structure sentences and paragraphs in such a way that makes it more engaging instead of starting it off with, my story is about, I want to tell about, no. It's not how you start writing.
Yeah, well, you got to engage students, you got to engage readers. So there's that engage. If you know how to engage, the subject matter just comes naturally. They learn if they are paying attention to, if you are engaging more, you've done majority of the work already. Now it's just filling their heads with the good stuff. So,
it was really funny because one of the ways I got to engage was the social studies book we were studying had the pyramid at Chichen Itza on it because we're studying the Western Hemisphere, sans United States. So it's Canada, Mexico, Central America, and South America. And my wife and I, soon after we got married in the 90s, went down to Cancun. We rented a little Volkswagen Bug, and we drove out to Chichen Itza. And I stood on the same spot where they took the picture. It was on the cover of our social studies book. When I came back the next fall, we had the book, of course, we were using it. And I showed them the pictures. I says, this is real. This is why you study social studies. This is why you study these cultures. They are real. These people did exist. And without their existing, you wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, that year was really good because the kids figured out what we were studying meant something. You know, a lot of kids say, it's boring. I don't want to learn about other people. Because, yeah, but these other people are here for a reason. And someday somebody's going to be studying about you.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah.
So with your multitude of books, do you want each book to stand on their own? I mean, I know you're trying to build a body of work with your mystery series, now your science fiction series, but do you want them to stand on their, if someone picks it up and just reads it, it can stand on its own regardless?
Yeah, they can read them. If they don't want to read anymore or they don't get the other books, yeah, it's fine with me because they do stand on their own. They will reference the other books, but they are standalones to be able to be read.
That's good. I know a lot of especially crime mystery novelists do the same thing. You can pick up a book in the middle of the whoever's career and read that and not be lost. You can understand everything's going on, and then, like you said, reference things. And if you go deeper in their story, it's just kind of cool to learn about as you go about. That's
well, for instance, Lee Child, who has 21, 22 books out now,
quite a few,
all with Jack Reacher.
Mm-hmm.
But each book is its own story.
Yeah,
they don't tie together. They're just Jack Reacher wandering around the world. They're mostly around the United States, figuring out what's going on. And, you know, he's going to the Goodwill to get new underwear and change clothes. And he goes to the bank every so often to pull some money out if he needs it. But basically let's just say he's homeless.
Yeah. Michael Connelly does that too with the Bosch series. Yeah. He's got, oh my gosh, probably, I think 30-ish books and several different characters. They all intermingle to some degree. And same thing though, you can pick one up from when he first started, I think in the late 70s to current day. And regardless, it's you can pick that book up and read it and understand.
Yeah, well, Kevin O'Brien over in Seattle, a friend of mine, writes standalones.
Yeah.
There are thrillers, mysteries, but each one is its own story without crossover characters.
Okay.
So those are true standalone books.
Right.
I think Agatha Christie, when she wrote her series, those were all standalones, even though she had basically 3 different people that were her detectives. I always remember Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple, and I forget who the third one is. You know, Hercule Poirot was the famous one.
As a prior language arts teacher, before that, I'm sure you had an experience where language had power. Did you have anything significant happen to that, or was over time you kind of realized language had power?
I went to a private parochial school where English was a focal point, along with foreign languages like Latin and Spanish and German, and that foreign language for some people, English.
yeah. English is a foreign language in some countries.
No, for some people who were born here, it's still a foreign language.
Yeah,
but we had focus on language and how that the construction of what we have to say is important. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course through college, when I was going to Oregon State, Washington State, that became important there too with the language developments. And of course, because I was a teacher, becoming a teacher from Washington State, the language arts course on how to teach language arts, that became important. And so, yeah, those did help. I didn't use them until I got to retirement age, except in the classroom. But now that I write books, of course, we're supposed to get better at writing, more engaging, tighten up our writing as we continue to write. You know, this is the 10,000 hours rule for learning something. Mm-hmm. There's 1 million words rule for writing. I'm just about at 1 million words. So
wow.
And my wife, who's a critic of mine, you're supposed to, I don't know if you let Ashley read your manuscripts or you read them to her, but my wife, Sandy, is a critic of mine.
Oh, really?
Yes. She's a critique. She does critique.
Yes.
Because she reads all the time. She reads a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I read to her, 2 things happen. One, as I read out loud each chapter to her, I find out where I've made mistakes, where I have, even though I thought I've edited it, I still find that's not a very good sentence. And so I'll rewrite the sentence. And she says the same thing. Says, you seem to have lost your train of thought here, or this doesn't sound right, or maybe you should tone it down a bit. And so I'll think about it and put it to work. And so we're supposed to get better as we write, and I hope I am. Sandy thinks my new book, Android Dawn, is really, really exciting.
Cool.
Very engaging. And I have in my editing programs, I have other people read because you always need other eyes. But I also work with 2 editing programs that you may have heard of, Grammarly and ProWriting Aid. And Grammarly is my first shot through because it does the basics and helps me there. And then I do ProWriting Aid because it delves into the tough things like sticky sentences, sticky words that you put. I try to set a goal. I think you have a question here. Do you set a goal for your work about how much you work? And I do. I try to work about 1,850 words in a chapter. Sometimes it'll go to 2,000. Sometimes it will only be 1,700 or 1,800. Yeah. But if I write a paragraph, if I write a chapter and it's 2,000 words, by the time I'm done going through Grammarly and ProWriting Aid and tightening it up and making it more clear and less sticky words, it's probably down to 1,800 words. I could easily take out 200 words in a chapter because I'm just writing crap.
But that's, that's okay. That's the process. And that's something I love about writing is no matter if you are, you're doing well one day where you're getting the words out right, it's just flowing out of you. It sounds great. It feels great. Versus days where you're having a hard time pulling things out and it is crap what you're writing. As long as you've got a framework for your chapter, your story, you can always go back and edit garbage. You can't edit a blank page. So I'm an advocate for just put the words on paper and you can improve it later. That's a beautiful thing about writing. You can just go back and fix it.
Yeah. Well, I have talked to people who are interested in becoming authors. They have a story and they say, I just don't know how to begin. So I ask them, well, tell me what it's about.
Yeah.
So they tell me, and then I'll give them a first line.
And that's all you need.
And they say, I hadn't thought of that. I says, yeah, there's your first line.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and I'll say, hey, I don't need it. It's yours. You go write that. And then I said, the other thing too is do remember that you just have to simply write. Don't worry about what comes out. Just write. And you can clean it up later.
Exactly.
Got to get it out.
That is my advice to anyone who's wanting to become an author or just writing in general. Just sit down and write. I've telling people before, if you don't know how to start it, just start writing blah, 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 blah. And then eventually you're going to get tired of writing blah, 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 blah. And you're going to write something of genuine value that may lead you down to something with, to get your book started. So, I mean, it's that just start, period. Start moving, start doing.
And that's how it works. So you open the book and it says, blah, 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 blah. He had nothing else to say to her about what was going on in his life.
There you go.
But he knew that she wanted more than he was giving her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you started the story.
Exactly.
I just gave him the first line.
Yeah. There you go. Right there. That'll hook somebody. Well, what is this about? What's going on here? So
what's going on here?
It'll work.
It's like my book Motive. That first line that's in there because you read the book. Roger sat on the floor holding Mary's warm but lifeless hand.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck happened?
Yeah, you want to know.
Yeah,
in the world.
It only took me, I don't know, maybe 2 years to come up with that line.
Yeah, it'll hit you all of a sudden. You're like, oh, that's going to be an excellent hook. That'll grab the people, and then they won't let go until the very end.
Correct.
That's Correct. The hope. That's the hope. Engage them every single chapter.
Like The Mistress. It starts out, Siggy Weatherman's eyes popped open, the light of day flooding her brain, creating questions about her behavior. Mm-hmm. Well, all right. What behavior?
Yeah, exactly.
What was she doing with her eyes popped open?
Yeah.
Most of us just open our eyes.
So throughout your 10-year venture as an author, what have you found is the best way to market your books?
Well, the question is, do I want a marketing company and give them several $1,000s and let them go to work? Yeah, I don't have that kind of money.
No.
So if I become famous, okay. If I don't, I've got an audience here in the county now. I go out to various events. I have had my books at book signings at Barnes and Noble at Kitsap Mall. I have my books are sitting in the Unique Local Bazaar. I have them down at the brand new, or I soon will hopefully have them at the brand new store down in Port Orchard that just opened a weekend ago. Bookstore Under the Stairs, which is in Town Square Mall. And I went down there to see a couple of friends of mine, Kate Breslin and Brown. He writes inspirational books. So I got to see them and ran into Rachel Fordham, who's out of Port Townsend. She had been down there signing books too. And these are, we've interviewed these people. S.L. Brown. Yeah, S.L. Brown. And hopefully, you just put your books out where you can and see what goes. I do the Blackberry Festival. I've done the Kitsap County Fair for 7 or 8 years. And I will be at the Northwest Truck Fest, Food Truck Fest in July up at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds. I went there a couple of years ago. Well, let's see, it was last year. And it was the first one last year in July. They did 1-day session. They had 5 food trucks and it was a 90-degree day. The sun was shining. We had finally come off the, oh my God, you've got to be masked up and taking care of yourself and isolated. And we had relaxed things a bit. And so we, I think some 4,000 people came through. And I had a booth marketing my books. I was there from 11 to about 2:30. And I think I sold 18 books that day. And to me, that's a pretty good day. Yeah. I find myself down at the barbecue, the BBQ2U, which is a restaurant down in Gig Harbor.
Yes, it is.
I sit that little corner by the windows and market books there. I was there a week ago, and I think it was 27, 28 books over the week, which is, and it was mostly on Friday and Saturday when I was selling books. But people came in and they said, "Oh yeah, hey, these are interesting. Yeah, I bought some books from some of the other authors that were here. Yeah, I like local authors," so they buy books. Unfortunately, I have done in the past the Gig Harbor Arts Festival, which is in July. Just happened to be the same weekend as the Northwest Truck Fest, so I can't do both. And I've already paid for the Truck Fest. I've been at Tacoma Dome. I've been at Puyallup. I'm going to the street fair in the end of this month in Seattle, University Street Fair. You just get yourself out there. I bought 2 booths, the pop-up tents. Yeah. And I have tables, tablecloths, book racks. I've got all the accoutrements for setting up a short store and marketing books. And, not everybody buys books. When you're out there trying to sell, you don't necessarily have to sell the book to the person who's in front of you. You sell it to their friends. You sell it to their family because there are birthdays or other events coming. And you say, hey, you may not like this genre, but yeah, my brother does. My mom reads these all the time. My dad, I've got a friend over here, blah, blah. And they keep saying, well, you need to get them these books. And often they will buy.
Yeah. Leverage the interests of their loved ones. And that usually gets them to get interested enough to buy for a gift.
Well, and then here's the funny thing. They come back and they say, I got that book for my brother, sister, mother, whatever. I read it. I need another one.
They got to have a copy of their house. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, it happens.
It does. It's actually a wonderful thing when it does happen.
That family I was talking about that I had the former student and her sister had gone to the school there. There were 3 sisters and mom. And they went into the Unique Local Bazaar and they walked out with 6 books.
Whoa.
They bought the entire mystery series and The Mistress. I wasn't going to argue with them.
No. Yeah, please take more. Enjoy them.
Fun.
read them.
And that happens. And then I have had people come back and say, I read your first two. Do you have any more?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, they're right here. Okay, I want those two.
Uh-huh. That's a good feeling. That's a good feeling.
Of course, then you also get the people to say, I read your book. It sucks. I said, okay.
Yeah, you just have to take that with a grain of salt, because not everything is not everyone's going to like the books. It's just how it goes. Just like music and movies and other consumable media.
Yep.
It's people have opinions on things. It's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Let it roll off your back. Well, so to add to the marketing bonanza that is, just marketing in general, I read that you have produced a local television show too.
Yeah, Mark and I do through the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television over near the fairgrounds. The studios are located over there. For the last, I think it's, we can't count the last 2 years because we screwed that up with the COVID. But we had 4 years before that. So we're working on year number 6 or 7 of KLAW Presents. And KLAW, of course, stands for Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. And what we do is we interview local authors like yourself, editors, publishers, artists, musicians, and we just simply go into the studio, talk for half an hour to an hour about what's going on, and then they broadcast the show for us. And we'll be in there. I think we get in there about once a month, usually on a Wednesday. Go from there. Yeah. And we have done. And then we also, Mark and I do a Halloween show in which we dress up in characters. I've been Dracula the last 4 years, and he has been, he was Freddy Krueger, and he's been a werewolf and such. But we dress up in costumes, and then we put on a show, and then we invite our writer friends, author friends, to read anything they have that is scary and provocative. And we don't want to get too crazy, but we put it out there and then market this show as our Halloween show. And then we also do a Christmas show in which I dress up as a first elf, and Mark dresses up as Santa Claus because he has the bulk to do it. And then his wife, Sherry, dresses up as Rudolph, the reindeer. Okay. And then we put that show on, and then we have our author friends who read their Christmas stories. That's fun. We put those 2 shows on, then we have all these other ones. And you can find us on YouTube. Oh, okay. Forgot the actual address, but if you go to Blue Forge Press, go to their YouTube channel, they archive all our shows for us. Okay. And so we have dozens and dozens of shows archived on YouTube through Blue Forge Press in Port Orchard. And I'll leave that link in the description too, so people can find those. So people want to look those up. I'll send you the link. Yes, please do. And I will put that in the comments or in the description, and people can jump on there when it's posted up to YouTube. And then you can message Peter also, and I'm sure he can get back to Facebook. You're on Facebook. I am on Facebook and Instagram. So I know you wrote, especially in Motivations, both a male character and a female character. What's the most difficult thing about writing characters from the opposite sex? Trying to figure out who the heck they are. We men have those of us who are male men, the manly man, as they say, have our biases and our ways of thinking. And to get a character that is not in our background or in our way of thinking, that takes some work. That takes some study on how you can make, for instance, a man write a female part, like I did with Victoria, and make her as real as possible with her female thinking going on, her femininity and such. It takes some work, and it takes talking with the female members of my family to get those emotions, those thoughts, those ideas out. The inner voice. I have yet to take on any kind of a character that would be LBGTQ. I have no background in that. But if I were to write one, I certainly would make sure to do the proper research. I have friends that are in that group, and I would talk with them about, all right, what goes on in your mind that makes this character that I'm trying to develop a real person to you? And so I'd talk to them about that.
That's good. You got to get those perspectives and putting that in there, having that inner voice, because a lot when you're reading, you not only have what the narrator is telling them what's going on, but you got that inner voice of the character, especially if it's in first person. That is critical to first person.
Yeah.
Monologue is really, really important.
Research is important.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make it real. You want to make, I mean, like when I say my detective, Marcus Jefferson with the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, they say, oh, really? Does he work there? Well, not really, but
Exactly.
So, but I have sheriff friends. I mean, I have deputy friends. So, and as I met a state patrolman at Unique Local Bazaar a couple of weeks ago. He's retired, and he picked up one of my books to read. And I said, well, my detective doesn't necessarily follow police procedure. He says, well, that's okay. I like reading them. So,
oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. So like when you're writing, how do you select the names of your characters?
Some names are intriguing to me, and I borrow from our current histories, and I use their names. In the book, The Mistress, I have some doctors and nurses, and I borrowed real names to put them in there, or I made up fun ones. Like one of the nurses is Paige, Paige Turner. Yeah, I mean, that's a standard one that people have used for a long time. You can't copyright a person's name. So
no, you can't.
Unless they're a real person and they trademark themselves, then you might have a little difficult. I mean, I couldn't use Prince, for instance, because Prince is a trademark name.
Right.
And but I'll use friends' names. I'll ask permission.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
In the Garden of Eden, I became friends with a young lady, I mean, really young, who's in Miami. And I asked her years before when I was writing the book, because I liked her name. I really did like her name. So I asked her if I could use her name send her an email, a direct message. And she wrote back, feature me. Now, what she's trying to do is to become an influencer on Instagram and out in the world. She wanted to be an influencer. I think at the time, maybe she was about 19 or so. So I used her name, and she became a Seattle assistant police chief for detectives. So that name is now in the book. And I have contacted her and said, I have featured you and such. Mm-hmm. And I'll send her a copy of the book. She hasn't responded yet to getting a copy, but she's out there. She's pretty famous. If I give her a copy of the book and she puts it out there, she's got like 2 million followers. So she sells all kinds of things, Bang energy drinks, bikinis. She's now a real estate agent. She's out there.
Yeah.
Doing things.
Well,
marketing.
That's really cool.
I think she's about 22 or 23 now. So.
Oh, okay.
But so I asked her, can I use your name? She said yes. So fine.
That's a great way.
Use your name. Yeah.
It's a great way to market your book and to get it out there and get someone who's any more of an influencer to take interest. That's actually really great. That's a great idea.
So,
yeah. So how long, I know this is different for everybody, but on average, how long does it take you to write a book now? You said the first one took about 3 years. How long are you kind of shortening that gap now?
Oh, yeah. If you want to count the amount of time that I actually sit and write a book, it takes about 3 months.
Oh, nice.
If you talk about the time during which I am writing, it could be 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Because I don't write all the time. You hear about, I think it was, I forgot who the guy's name, but he was asked the question at one of the conferences I went to in New York with Thriller Fest. The question was asked, what inspires you to write? And he said, I wake up and between 9 and 12, I'm inspired to write. Every day he wrote 9 to 12 every day.
Wow.
however many hundreds or thousands of words he put out, that's what he wrote every day.
Wow.
But it was a profession to him. That was his job, was to make as much money writing books as he could.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And then I talked to Robert Degoni about it, and he tries to write every day. 100 words, 1,000 words, doesn't matter. He just tries to write a little bit every day. Of course, his schedule is pretty busy with his teaching as well, because he teaches writing and goes to conferences. And then, of course, he's made enough money now that he quit his lawyer degree. He still has the degree, but he closed down his law practice and he writes full time. Same as Steve Barry. In Jacksonville, St. Peter's. He's in Florida anyway. I think it's in Jacksonville. But no, he's in St. Augustine. That's where he is. He and his wife, Vicki. But Steve was a lawyer, and his books finally were hitting the point where I asked his wife once, he says, Steve's still practicing law? And she said, no, he's finally gotten to a point where he can close down his law practice. And this is awesome.
Yeah.
So you get to that point. Being a retired teacher, I have a steady income.
Mm-hmm.
I don't worry about whether or not I'm going to make money at books, but I do try to sell enough books to cover the expense of creating the books in the first place. And I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm at that point.
That's excellent.
I pull in enough money selling books to offset the cost of producing the books in the first place. Because it ain't cheap to produce a book. Mistress, for instance, I just ordered new books from Ingram Spark. And I think by the time you get done with shipping and handling, they're like $6.59 a book. They market at $18.95. So I'm making some money. But if Barnes and Noble or any other bookstore were to order this book, we have a 50% discount so the bookstore can make money. They'll sell it for $18.95, but they're going to buy it for $10 or $9.
Yeah.
And so when the book is going to cost me $6.50 to produce, you can find out that right away you're only going to make a couple of bucks on a book. But if you can get 35 to 40,000 books out there to all the libraries and the bookstores, that's a pretty good income.
Well, I hope all the any authors who are listening who are new, I know myself, I've only been around for about 2 years now as a full-fledged author, and I'm learning every day from people like yourself who've been in the market, in the business for much longer. And so I really appreciate all the insight you've given. Before we sign off, we want to make sure that people can get a hold of you, find your books, and purchase them, because I've read Motive and I love Motive. I need to read some more of them, especially the sequels. I want to check out your.
Well, you're going to want to read the trilogy too.
Oh, I'm going to try and read all of them as much as I can.
Jerry is Mark's uncle up in Snohomish County.
Mm-hmm.
He is a sheriff deputy up there, involved in an undercover sting to take down a drug cartel working the waterfront in Everett.
Yeah.
Doesn't go well.
Yeah.
5 months later, after being dismissed from the service of the sheriff's office, he's dead of a suicide.
Right.
Well, his detective son or nephew never believed he would do that.
Right.
So Mark has evidence that Jerry left behind, didn't give it to Snohomish because we didn't trust him anymore. And with his father, Tiberius, who's Jerry's older brother and a sergeant in Seattle police, they're going to figure out what really did happen to Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you market. You set the story stage for it. And people say, well, all right, I want to read that.
Exactly.
And then what's this one about this boat here that's on the cover? It says, oh yeah, once they figure out what happened to Jerry, then Mark and Joan and their 3 kids go on a vacation, taking a cruise, meet an author who unfortunately dies aboard and under suspicious circumstances.
Yeah.
And Mark, unfortunately for him, gets involved with what's going on.
Yeah. So where can people get copies of the book then? Or books?
You go to Amazon, and they are my Amazon author page is what I use basically for my contact on the internet. All my books are there, except my dad's sermons. They're not there because those are local, sold locally. They can be ordered though. Bookstores can order my books. So you go to Barnes and Noble, or you go to any of the bookstores around here, Liberty Bay Books or Eagle Harbor Books up in Bainbridge, and they'll have my books. I also do a unique local bazaar in the Kitsap Mall. and I'm there probably twice a month, and we'll market my books directly and sign them to you. And then keep watching for events that are taking place. Sir Optimist's Spring Fair, the University District Street Fair, Northwest Truck Fest, Kitsap County Fair, Blackberry Festival. And we're going to be, hopefully, I haven't heard back from Paige at the Kitsap Mall, but hopefully in October, we'll be there with authors out in the middle of the walkways selling books, because we did that a couple of years ago and it was very successful. Nice. And so just look, keep an eye open. If you want to follow us, go to Facebook and follow KLAW, Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. And we have monthly meetings on the first and third Wednesdays of each month at 7:00 at the West Bremerton Spiro's Pizza. And anybody can come, and we talk about marketing and events that we're having and what we're going on. We are not a critique group. There is a critique writers group that meets. They're also called Kitsap Writers, but we're not that group. But we like to meet, talk about our events that are coming up and how we can help to promote our work. And so first and third Wednesdays, I expect you to show up Wednesday.
What time is that?
We meet at 7:00.
Okay.
Not only that, but you'll meet other people that you can put into your podcast.
Heck yeah. That's the whole point. I've been surprised by people responding pretty well to it, which is great. So I didn't anticipate that first trying out. So it's kind of great to it's really fun to actually get to know people locally and just learning all sorts of cool things about what they do, their process, and what's in the area. Cause I'm still new to this. I'm learning. It's great.
Well, we've got famous authors that live in this area. Mm-hmm. Susan Wiggs, Kristen Hanna, Greg Olson. They're all well-known international authors. Kristen and Susan are over on Bainbridge Island. Greg Olson lives down in Olalla. And of course, then there's Debbie Macomber, who occasionally lives in Port Orchard and writes her romance novels. Nice. But, so we do have famous authors around.
Well, hopefully maybe eventually I can get them on here and we can get some chatting too. I think that'd be pretty cool. More the merrier. I'm planning on getting as many people on here to talk and spread the word, spread their word, their message, their stories, their experiences. That's the whole point of this, is just to spread the word and have a good time doing it. Yeah.
And read some good work.
And read some great work.
As I said in this book, The Mistress, my dedication was to, as it says, this book is dedicated to science fiction readers who believe the future is written today. Mm-hmm. I wrote the other one that said in Android Dawn, my quote in that one is, it's science fiction until someone makes it science fact. And that was from Marie Lu in her book Warcross.
I love it.
That's true. It's true.
Well, Peter Stockwell, Mr. Stockwell, as many of your middle school students would call you.
And they still do, and they're 50 some years old.
Isn't that funny? It's just old habits, man. They die hard. It's still kind of strange for me calling you Peter instead of Mr. Stockwell, because I knew you at least in the education world. And so Peter, it's been fabulous having you on here. I really appreciate your time. And if you want to, you got more books coming out. You're not going to stop, which is great. I am happy to do more interviews with you in the future.
Well, and we'll get you on KLAW Presents.
I look forward to that. I'm going to try and arrange a way to get myself on there, because I got to start getting out and doing some more marketing. Thank you again for joining us on the Mighty Books podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.